is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
A lot to learn today, and you're going to want to take notes. There's a lot to learn today, and you're not going to be particularly happy when class is over, because I'm going to keep shining the light into dark places that you might wish later the light had never shone. You know, going from where I was commenting here a few minutes ago about the costumes we sell for little girls in costume shops that are designed for, frankly, for hookers or strippers. I mean, seriously. We need naughty nurse outfits and all this. I mean, have you looked at what the costumes are for little girls today? You know, dirty demons and naughty nurses. I mean, seriously. I ask yourself, would you let your wife leave the house in that outfit? And if you wouldn't let your wife leave the house in that outfit, why on earth are we targeting 8 and 10-year-old girls with this crap? Supply and demand, my friend, supply and demand. But, you know, the problems are much more deeply seated than that. That's just one example of the problem. Students are now paying for their college education by selling sex online. It's called prostitution where I come from, but apparently it's encouraged. In Britain alone, 13,000 students, they are guessing, have signed up with proof of university enrollment at a site called Seeking Arrangement, where so-called sugar daddies meet their sugar babies. And the sugar daddies pay for their school and their lifestyle, and guess what they get in return? You got it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And you wonder what's going wrong? We have no morals. We have no morals. We're void of a conscience. We're like a soulless country. Listen to this, if you haven't heard this one yet. A Michigan abortion provider featured in that series of controversial videos covertly filmed by pro-life advocates that have been targeting Planned Parenthood and its affiliates. This time, it's the founder of Metro Detroit's Northland Family Planning Centers, talking about her dilemma when she anticipated her medical waste vendor would stop accepting the remains of aborted babies. It prompted her to contemplate a drive to northern Michigan to get rid of them herself. Oh, it gets far worse. I had 5 months worth of fetal tissue in the freezers, and we were renting freezers to put them in. It was all I thought about. So said Northland's executive director, Renee Chelian, in the video. I was so consumed with fetal tissue, I was ready to drive to northern Michigan and have a bonfire. I was just trying to find out how I wouldn't get stopped or how far into the woods I would have to go to have this fire that nobody was going to see me. Do we have a soul, America? The woman wants to drive into northern Michigan with babies aborted from the greater Detroit area and burn them in a bonfire in the woods in northern Michigan. Does this not make you sick to your stomach? What the hell is wrong with us? What the hell is wrong with us? Northland Family Planning Clinics. They have clinics in Westland, Southfield, and Sterling Heights. So babies aborted from all over greater Detroit. She wanted to drive them into the woods and set a big fire just so she wouldn't get caught. Burning little bodies and arms and legs. Wow. And we're okay with this. We're apparently okay with this. Gary Peters and Debbie Stabenow are okay with this. They support Planned Parenthood. Dan Kildee is okay with this. He supports Planned Parenthood. Are you okay with this? Because I'm not. I'm very much not okay with this. But they are. Again, those Northland Family Planning Centers are in Westland, Southfield, and Sterling Heights. The YouTube video was recorded on April 7th of last year. That according to a timestamp on the video, and features a panel discussion about the disposal of baby remains. A panel discussion. Chelian was a speaker on the panel, which took place during the National Abortion Federation's annual meeting in San Francisco. The business dates to the 1970s. It's a longtime member of the National Abortion Federation, according to CEO and President Vicky Saporta. The videos, Saporta says, were illegally taken at NAF meetings, and they are currently protected by a temporary restraining order issued by the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. Why? Why are they protected? Because we want to protect baby killers? Is that it? Chelian talked about issues surrounding a 2012 Michigan law that set procedures for abortion providers to dispose of fetal remains through medical waste incineration, cremation, or burial. I don't think the incineration meant a bonfire in the woods of northern Michigan. Stand up, America. Please. The hotline number is 888-900-9966. Frank on the line in DeWitt today. Frank, welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning. Well done speaking up about this atrocity. I would like to challenge everybody that's listening out there. I would like to hear a Democrat voter call into your program and tell them why they're ready for Hillary when she's has gone on record saying she proudly supports Planned Parenthood, and so does Obama. And I want to know, I would like to hear them justify voting for people who harvest baby organs. I mean, how would the Democrats like to have their organs harvested? I mean, this is just barbarism. It's just barbarism.
The truth is,
we're right where the German people were in the 1930s. So I would
sadly,
like to
Frank, the truth is this. Hold on, Frank. We got to run. But the truth is this: anybody that would support this, you can't harvest their organs. At least you can't harvest their heart because they don't have one. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Wednesday. Thank you, Frank. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
Well, I've been having a little trouble now, but I'm keeping it together, yeah.
I am so angry about some of these things. I mean, have we lost our soul? Have we lost our soul? I mean, do we have one left? For God's sake. I mean, she was going to drive to northern Michigan to burn fetuses in a bonfire, and we're okay with this. She's going to take aborted babies and take them into northern Michigan and build a bonfire just so she wouldn't get caught. Anyhow, we'll get back to that, I suppose. Our next guest is here to talk about some other things that these things drive me crazy. Julie Gunlock, Senior Fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, good friend of mine and a good friend of the program. Julie, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I got to ask you about that. I know we're here to talk about bacon and so forth, but I just had to have a piece of sausage to get ready. But I want to ask you about something else, if I may. And that is, do you have kids? I don't know if we've talked about this or not.
3 little boys.
All right, but you don't have any girls, right? So, but you've been out to Halloween shops, right? What is up with Halloween shops? I mean, I have a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was buying an outfit for a hooker or a stripper. I mean,
no kidding.
Naughty nurses, and it's horrible.
Yeah, I wrote a piece for the New York Post a couple weeks ago about this, and I had read about a mom who complained about a shop called Party City. Their sort of the choices that they had for little girls, and so I went on the website. I wanted to see if she had any legitimate concern, and I was astonished at how few choices of acceptable, sort of innocent costumes there were. For instance, they had a policewoman. Well, and it was also interesting. In the career category, there were only a few choices, maybe 5 choices for little girls, and most of them were sexed up. I mean, these were
pretty much every one of them came with a mini skirt, right?
Yeah,
they come with a mini skirt, fishnet stockings, and high heels. I mean,
right.
I'm sorry.
And at the bottom, it says you can add things to your costume, to sort of accessories. And for the female police officer, it suggested go-go boots. Because if she goes undercover in a topless bar, I mean, she might need those, right? So, but under the boys section, and again, I'm not one of these knee-jerk, sort of, angry feminists, right? But there were 27 choices in the boys section. There were like 5 in the girls section. 27 choices in the boys section, and all of them were legitimate. They looked like accurate mini versions of what police officers and firefighters and doctors actually wear, as opposed to the girls, which were all ruffled and short and tight and sexy. I mean, the police officer, as you said, had fishnet stockings.
Your problem,
it had gloves,
Julie.
Fingerless gloves. It had this sort of sadomasochistic belt with handcuffs hanging off of it. I mean, and it comes in toddler sizes. What in the world is going on?
I wouldn't let my wife wear those things out of the house.
Well, maybe with the door
trust
closed.
me. And my wife could pull it off. I wouldn't let her out of the house in that crap. I'm telling you. I've got a 10-year-old. I'm sitting there going, wow. But I've identified your problem, Julie. And listening to you, the counselor's in. You just need to shop at Target where there is no differentiation between boys and girls, so they can all wear the same damn thing.
I mean, your mistake. There is. You've sort of caught on something there. I mean, you might have to buy your little girl a boy's a costume if she wants to be a police officer or a doctor, because there's really, on the boys' costumes, I mean, they haven't sort of magic mic'd up the costumes in the boys' section, so your better bet is probably to go with a boys' costume. But again, I'm not this sort of, it's not fair, and I demand equality in children's costumes, but it is frustrating for moms, and it's no wonder people get all paranoid about it.
Well, no kidding, but let me put it this way. At least Caitlin wears a full-length dress.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank God. Good Lord. So I'm a little wound up. I mean, I find it, and people are like, well, there's this culture of rape in America. Well, why do you think that is?
No kidding. Yeah.
Why are you over-sexualizing little girls, for God's sake?
And I will tell you, in defense of these companies, because I was pretty hard on these companies in my column, saying, like, how disgusting and how dare you produce these. But look, the companies are producing what is being purchased. Now, you could say, well, that's the only thing in the marketplace, so, people don't have a choice. But really, fine. Whatever if chicken or the egg, parents need to start demanding better. They need to stop buying this stuff. I think a lot of moms buy this stuff and then they put leggings on or tights, or they try to make it more demure. Just stop buying it. It's terrible.
Bingo.
And it sends a message to young women.
If you didn't buy it, they wouldn't put it on the shelves.
Right.
It's supply and demand. And these pigs will sell anything because they don't care. It's not their kids.
That's right. And we need, as consumers, we need to realize we have power. I mean, so often the answer is we need to regulate it. We need government to go in there and tell them, you shouldn't do that, right? We need rules and regulation and bans. But instead, if you're a lover of the free market and appreciate the power of the consumer, why don't you actually be a responsible parent and not buy that stuff? I mean, you can try that.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner, Johnny. It's behind door number 3. There she is, Julie Gunlock, with the answer we've all been looking for. What's her prize? Her prize is good kids that are not slutty and trampy. Welcome to the club.
That's right.
Is it really that hard? Come on.
Right.
Good Lord. Anyhow, so I have to apologize because you came here to tell me that bacon's good for me, which I believe, by the way.
Well, let's just leave it there.
Yeah, bacon's good for you, and no, it's not going to cause global warming, despite what they might tell you. I tell you, I'm a hell of a lot more concerned about short, slutty skirts on the Halloween costumes than I am about eating bacon for breakfast, my friends, and that is the truth.
That's right. That's right. Eat that bacon. I mean, don't eat it every day. I mean, these studies that come out, first of all, even if you eat it every day, your increase, I mean, it's not, you increase your chances of getting colorectal cancer by a small amount. And you know what? There are plenty of people that would welcome shaving off a few years of their life so that they could eat bacon every day. I mean, I think that's a fair trade.
That's me. Sign me up. And I agree with that. Julie Gunlock, everybody, senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. I fear for your boys, too, but that's a discussion for a different day because they have their own set of challenges growing up in this world, Julie. But always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks for having me on.
There you have it, everybody. Julie Gunlock, senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Listen, if you'd like to get involved, the hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. You can also go to stevegruber.com. You can find the columns that I write there. You can find previous programs and specific interviews on the podcast, anything you want. They're powered by Podbean. Go find that. And you can also listen live at work. If you're on your way to work and you don't want to miss a minute, which I can understand and fully support your point of view, there's a listen live button, so you can take us right to work. We'll be right there on the desk with you. It's Wednesday on The Steve Gruber Show.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
Yeah, what are you going to do about the Atkins diet, by the way? Or the paleo diet? I mean, if they're going to tell you that bacon and meat and processed meat, and it's all, bad for you and it causes these big problems now, which most people, by the way, there is no cause and effect. And, and it's, if you have too much of anything, period. If you eat donuts every day probably more likely to cause you cancer because of all the sugar, right? All the sugar there would be, more detrimental to your health than the protein and the nitrates in meat. At least that's my guess. That's my guess on all of it. But anyhow, we'll get back to that. Talking about personal responsibility, I guess is what it is. The whole argument over bacon and meat is, you get out of life what you put into it. And if you abuse it, if you're bad to it, well, you're probably going to pay a price. I guess that's my bottom line. Our next guest, Christopher Harris, the executive director of Unhyphenated America. And coming after yesterday, the 27th of October is the birthday of Teddy Roosevelt, who most famously said, hyphenated Americans are no Americans at all. By the way, a little history note for you. Christopher Harris, welcome to the program.
How you doing, Steve? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing well. And unhyphenatedamerica.com, you're talking about personal responsibility, going from fat to fit, from leftist to conservative, getting it together both physically, spiritually, and intellectually, it would seem. Tell me about it.
Well, it was just as I was writing in that article, it just got me to thinking as I was working out and just, as a matter of fact, getting ready to work out for that day. And, you have your best thoughts sometimes while you're exercising. And I saw this article about a lady who had went from an overweight mom of 3 kids to being a fitness competitor, a championship fitness competitor, and it kind of got me thinking about some other friends that I have who I've noticed that they've transitioned to being a lot more conservative since I've known them as they went from being fat to fit. And the theme that they've talked about the whole time is personal responsibility. And they were saying how people get upset. It's funny how they would sit there and they say, hey, you know what? You know what I used to look like. Here it is. I'll even show you of me then. Here is me now. I made a decision to start thinking differently, or I started thinking differently and made a decision to start acting differently. And here's the results that I got. Now my life is different. My life is better. And I find it fascinating, and because I spoke to those people, said, that's the exact same philosophy that I took myself when I became a conservative. When I was more liberal-minded, 15 years or so ago, most of my thought process was how I was a victim and things were out of my control. And this is the thing I've noticed whenever you talk to a lot of, especially other black people who become conservatives, the biggest thing they all say is that they had to let go of that victim mindset and take personal responsibility. And now they think entirely different, and their life is different.
It's interesting. And if you're black and you become a conservative, you're a victim, all right. You get victimized by MSNBC. You get victimized by the left. You get victimized by people like Melissa Harris Perry, a true bigot and racist who's on MSNBC every day. I mean, you get attacked and called names. I mean, talk about being marginalized. I mean, that's when you get attacked, unless I'm mistaken. But I think I'm on the money there, Christopher.
Oh, without a doubt. And, I'm a big fan of Booker T. Washington, who's somebody who really has been maligned by history. The left has gone out of the way. They've either tried to ignore him out of history, or whenever his name is brought up, they've denigrated him. But he saw them, the left, and he called them out 100 years ago. As a matter of fact, in about 2 weeks, it'll be the 100-year anniversary of his death. But I wrote about this, and I mentioned this in the article. And he said that there's another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public, having learned that they're able to make a living out of their troubles. They've grown in the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. Steve, did anybody come to mind? When I was reading
let me see Al Sharpton. No, I can't think of Al Sharpton. Or Jesse Jackson. That doesn't come to mind for me. No Al Sharpton here. Woo!
Yeah,
talk about an industry.
Isn't it funny? Is we as conservatives, we study history, and we have to understand the history of human nature and human behavior. When you think about that, you're sitting there going, well, we look for what works. And it goes back to that from fat to fit, is going from liberal to conservative. But what the saying is that if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative when you're older, you have no brain. Well, we've studied history and say, hey, this all sounds well and good when we're emotional teenagers or even just, stupid and arrogant people in our early 20s. But, by the time you're 30, it's time to grow up. And you
absolutely.
And recognize enough to know that, hey, you know what? All that liberalism or leftism, as I refer to it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, you're clearly a breath of fresh air. We're on the line with Christopher Harris, the executive director of Unhyphenated America. You can find it at unhyphenatedamerica.org. You must have an interesting inbox in your email. I can only imagine the kind of kind things that are said about you every day.
Oh, yeah, I get all kind of, 11 Christmas letters all throughout the year, people wishing well to me,
Mm-hmm. Wishing you only the finest and the best, yes, I'll bet.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But you know what, it's the more that I studied all this, I've become pretty rock solid and bulletproof, Steve, and, to me, it's just like a child yelling at me, a toddler throwing a fit. I don't really pay any attention to it. I'm a grown-up, and that's what conservatives are, is grown-ups. We don't really pay attention to toddlers who are throwing fits.
Yeah, exactly. But it's accountability, and I think that's, the theme that you're on, which we talk about here pretty much every day, is accountability, or more accurately, the lack of accountability today. Nobody is responsible for their own actions. It's this happened and I wasn't treated right and somebody wasn't nice to me and they hurt my feelings and so therefore I lashed out. Really? I mean, we wouldn't let our children get away with this. Why do we let adults get away with it?
Well, another analogy I've used, and people talk about it, those of us on the right being lacking in compassion. But I've said this once before, when it comes to children, or infants who are learning, or toddlers, who are learning to walk, we understand that you have to let them fall down to learn how to pick themselves back up. I mean, you see...
Absolutely right.
Of course, unless you're... I'm sorry?
That's exactly right. Kids have to figure out how to, it's not how you fall, it's how you get back up that defines you. 10 seconds for the last word, Christopher.
Hey, well, Steve, I just want everybody to know you can find us once again at unhyphenatedamerica.org and understand, folks, that America is the greatest country, but perfection is not a requirement for greatness. And we're best when we're unhyphenated.
That's the fact, Christopher, and I take my hat off and salute that. Christopher Harris, Executive Director of Unhyphenated America, unhyphenatedamerica.org. We'll see you soon here on the program.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
If you've ever driven across the state, especially that stretch between Lansing and Detroit on I-96, man, that is a fast piece of freeway. There's some other pieces of I-75 headed north where you can just, let's be honest, you can set the cruise at 80 miles an hour and you're probably not going to get touched. You're not going to get picked off. Yeah, you know that. And the question is, if everybody's driving that fast, which, looking around, you set the cruise control at 80 on I-75 north, you're still going to get past. Yeah, there's no question, you're still going to get past. And the question is, why don't we just raise the speed limits? Well, Ann Schieber says that maybe it's politics. She's a senior investigative analyst for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. Welcome back, Ann.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, all right. I mean, you've been on those stretches of highway I'm talking about. 96 between Lansing and Detroit is like it's like the Autobahn. 75 north, certainly on a Thursday or Friday when people are trying to get to the cabin up north. Also, pretty quick piece of real estate when you're driving. But why do they not change the speed limits?
Well, the presumption is the faster the road, the less safe it is, and that's simply not the case. And what happens is if we underpost the road, put a speed limit that does not reflect the typical habits of drivers, we make the roads less safe because we have more variation in speed. So you have some people who do pay attention to the 70-mile-an-hour limit, and then you have some that push it to 10 miles. Most people choose a speed at which they feel comfortable to drive. And so if you just put a speed limit that reflects typical driving behavior, you get more people driving consistent speeds, which reduces road conflicts, road rage, tailgating, cutting off, which are the things that really do cause crashes.
So you're suggesting that we should, should we drive faster? Should we drive slower? Should we leave it the way it is? What is the best policy?
Well, there are a package of bills where we want to make it what's called the 85th percentile, and this is traffic engineering science, which has determined that you should set a speed limit reflecting a speed limit that's not exceeded by 85% of the drivers on the road. There are some stretches on 96, for example, where 80% or more are violating the 70-mile-an-hour limit. So that gives police great deal of discretion of who they pull over and who they ticket. Much of it is revenue-driven. We can't figure that out exactly because collecting ticket revenue figures is not an easy science, but we think it's exceeding $15 million based on the money, where that money goes. A lot of it goes to the library fund, but the local courts keep it. There's some kickback to the local municipality if, like, a county sheriff's department writes the ticket. And so, there are these packages of bills that are going to eliminate some of this excessive ticketing. And so there are people who are not, the insurance companies will not be able to surcharge you now on premiums. So there's a lot at stake here. The police department, MDOT, they are opposed to raising the limit for a variety of reasons. And my piece, I wanted to take a look at the politics behind it. Why would anybody object to creating a speed limit that most people drive? It just doesn't make sense.
Sounds to me like it's, I think you've laid it out pretty nicely for us, Ann. Sounds like it's all about the money.
It is about the money.
Yeah, it's about the cash.
There is one of these bills. This is real interesting. What happens if you're given a speed ticket? Most of that money does go to the library fund. But what happens is if you're given a speed ticket for going 5 miles over, that's a 2-point ticket. And so sometimes the local police will say to you, call the local prosecutor and we'll deal it. They'll even give you the number. We'll give you
That's
0
right.
points if you plead it down. And,
Well,
and
here's
what
what
they end
happened
up
to me.
doing is making you plead guilty to a local ordinance. And in that way,
Exactly.
the local ordinance sometimes costs double the price of the ticket. And you get no points, but they get to keep all the cash.
Well, and I had that exact thing happen. The town shall remain nameless, but it's on M66 north of Ionia. You folks can figure it out. I got pulled over on a situation just like that, but the situation was a little more pressing. You'll get no points if you pay for it right now. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you pay for it right now on the spot, we won't send it to the Secretary of State. We'll take the cash, and it'll be a local ordinance, and it was about $100. It's been 5 years ago now. But it's always stuck in my head, and I've got a couple of friends, that are state troopers. I called them. I said, "Is that legal?" They said, "Oh yeah, local ordinance. They can do that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Wow."
And yeah. So one of these bills is designed to eliminate that practice. We're going to make 0 to 5 a 0-point ticket. So if they're going to pull you over, they got to pull you over on something big. And there won't be any of this local point dealing.
Well, there probably still will be because, let's be honest, people are not that well educated. They'll still be making a deal on the side. Hey, listen, we won't send it to the Secretary of State because, let's be honest, not everybody's listening to us this morning, Ann. I know that's shocking. But not everybody's listening today as they should be. So some people will be, uninformed, but maybe they'll make it illegal then for these communities to do that, which, of course, then those communities will go looking for another source of revenue because this little community that I'm talking about had maybe, I'm thinking less than 1,000 people. Little town, and this happens all over the place, right? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And, Steve, it gets worse. When you start accumulating points on your license, your insurance company starts surcharging you. There are rural stretches of roads where the speed limit is 55 and nobody drives 55, but these local police departments will routinely go up and down these stretches with their radar on and pull people over. And your insurance company, if you start accumulating 3-4 points on your license, your insurance premiums could go up about $800 a year. And I've had that personally happen to me, so I know.
Well, you
that's
daredevil.
why they're fighting it.
Ann Schieber, daredevil behind the wheel. Look out, everybody. It's Blood, Sweat, and Gears with Ann Schieber.
Rural roads, rural highways.
Yeah. My mother had a term for you. It's called lead foot, Ann. Lay off the lead foot, yeah. Anyhow, Ann, great conversation and a good thing to be forced to be looking at. I appreciate your time. As always a pleasure.
All right, well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Ann Schieber, everybody. It's politics. It's money. It's going too fast, and it's people putting cash in their pockets. That's something for you to think about today when you're cruising the back roads. Keep an eye out for that guy with the radar gun because it could cost you today and tomorrow. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back. It's Wednesday here on the program. It's debate night in America. The Republicans are getting together and throwing a few punches. We'll see how that turns out. The hotline number here, 888-900-9966. Dave checking in from Grand Rapids. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate you taking my call. I want to just blow off a little steam today about the governor, as I affectionately call him, the governor taxinator. Because basically he's a rhino, and I know you kind of like him a little bit on this show, but like I said, appreciate you letting me express my frustration with his road tax issue.
Let it rip.
He should have got a clear message. 80% to 20% were the rough numbers last year that says we don't want taxes to go up, governor taxinator. So now, then after that, he has a closed-door meeting. What the heck's up with that? With your legislator. Closed door. The rest of us couldn't. Us dummy citizens couldn't listen in about the road tax issue, and then Shazam! About 3 weeks after that, we get a bill in front of us that increases whatever you want to call it, tax or registration of your car. Still an increase. He's still ignoring the 80-20% deal. Governor taxpayer, 20% wanted it, 80% did not.
Actually, Dave, less than 20% supported Prop 1. It didn't even make 20%. It's a little worse than you're even saying, but go on.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is, I hear around Reed's Lake in Grand Rapids. I don't know how familiar you are with the Reed's Lake, East Grand Rapids area.
I know the area. Go on.
Well, they got some money from the Michigan Department of Transportation for some kind of walk or path of some kind. Well, if we're spending money on walking paths, then I guess our priorities in this state are really screwed up because we're not fixing the roads and we're having a walking path. I got to be honest with you. I don't appreciate my tax money going to a walking path, especially in Reed's Lake area. Those people don't need my tax money.
Fair enough, Dave. I got to leave it there. My friend. Dave, I greatly appreciate you checking in. We entertain all of you. Don't worry. We'll let you on the line. 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show.